Today's story takes us deep inside the glamorous yet controversial world of Australian OnlyFans star Annie Knight, a woman who has built a million-dollar empire online and is now discovering the heavy personal costs that comes with it. As she prepares to walk down the aisle with her fiancé Henry Brayshaw, Annie is facing a heartbreaking twist no bride ever wants to experience. The sudden collapse of her bridal party, the shock withdrawal of close friends, and the emotional fallout that followed. This is the dramatic story behind Annie Knight's wedding crisis. In a candid and emotional interview with Australian outlet Mamma Mia, Annie revealed the painful moment her phone rang, not with congratulations, but with a confession. A group of her closest friends, the women she imagined standing beside her in one of the most meaningful moments of her life, called her together. Their voices were shaky. Their message was devastating. They told her they couldn't be her bridesmaids anymore. Not because they didn't love her, not because they didn't support her, but because their employers allegedly did not want their staff associated too closely with Annie's adult content career. According to Annie, the group told her they feared how appearing in her bridal party, likely photographed, filmed, and widely shared, might impact their own professional reputations. They were devastated, Annie explained. It wasn't a decision they made lightly. They told her they were honored she chose them, but they simply could not risk being seen standing next to a woman whose online career was still considered controversial in certain industries. They cried. She cried. A celebration turned into a crisis, and in the hours that followed, the emotional spiral began. Annie admits she took the news hard, very hard. She described how the withdrawal triggered an almost visceral reaction, a sudden flood of insecurity and doubt. I started questioning everything, she said, almost in a paranoid way. Voices from the past crept in, memories of friendships that had failed, betrayals she had experienced before, harsh judgment she'd endured online. It all resurfaced at once. And for a moment, Annie wondered whether history was repeating itself, whether she was being abandoned again. She said she has a form of PTSD around friendship rejection. The bridesmaid crisis hit those nerves like lightning. But as the shock faded, something else happened. The remaining friends, the ones who stayed, stepped in. They reminded her she was loved. She was valued. She was not alone. And slowly, the panic gave way to acceptance. Now it's easy for me to understand and accept, she said. I know how important careers are. She even said that if her career were at stake, she would do anything to protect it. That empathy ultimately softened the blow. Despite the emotional storm, the wedding remains very much alive, and Annie will not be walking into it alone. According to Mamma Mia, she will still have 6 bridesmaids standing beside her next year in Australia when she marries fiancé Henry Brayshaw, a man she first met back in 2016. Their love story is long, steady, and, compared to everything else around Annie, refreshingly simple. The friends who stepped down? Surprisingly, they will still be part of her getting ready crew. They simply cannot appear in the official lineup. It's an unusual compromise, one that highlights the strange intersection between modern digital fame and real-world professional consequences. To understand why employers might be nervous, you need to understand just how visible Annie Knight has become. She joined OnlyFans in 2020. By 2022, she made it her full-time job, and her earnings exploded. She claims she brings in more than $200,000 every month, placing her among the platform's highest-paid creators. But fame, as always, comes with controversy. Annie went viral worldwide after claiming she had once slept with 583 men in 6 hours, a statement that sent social media into meltdown and cemented her status as one of the internet's most talked about adult creators. Her mother supports her. Her fiancé supports her. But not everyone did. During her interview, Annie shared one of the most intense moments of the entire journey: the reaction of her childhood friends when they found out what she was doing online. She said she received a phone call from the ringleader of the group, and the response was far from supportive. According to Annie, the call was filled with yelling, accusations, emotional outbursts, and the unmistakable feeling that her past life was crashing headfirst into her new one. It was the kind of conversation that leaves scars. And those scars echoed years later during the bridesmaid fallout. But here's where the story turns. For all the drama, Annie says she doesn't blame anyone. Not the friends who yelled, not the ones who stepped down, not the employers who felt nervous, not the industry that made her famous and infamous. Instead, she is choosing to protect her peace. She understands the risks her friends were facing. She understands that the world still holds double standards. She understands that her career, while empowering and lucrative, comes with consequences that ripple into every corner of her life. This is not just a story about one woman losing bridesmaids. It's about how modern careers, digital visibility, and old-fashioned social stigma collide, right at the moment she's supposed to be celebrating love. But here's where the story turns. For all the drama, Annie says she doesn't blame anyone. Not the friends who yelled, not the ones who stepped down, not the employers who felt nervous, not the industry that made her famous and infamous. Instead, she is choosing to protect her peace. She understands the risks her friends were facing. She understands that the world still holds double standards. She understands that her career, while empowering and lucrative, comes with consequences that ripple into every corner of her life. This is not just a story about one woman losing bridesmaids. It's about how modern careers, digital visibility, and old-fashioned social stigma collide, right at the moment she's supposed to be celebrating love. As Annie Knight prepares for her wedding next year, one thing is certain: her story is messy, emotional, dramatic, and deeply human. A love story shadowed by controversy, a bridal party shaken by fear, a woman determined to move forward anyway. Because in the end, for Annie, the wedding is still happening, the vows will still be spoken, and the people who truly love her will be there.